Hey, lovers of Star Wars CCG content. It's Sean here with another OCS month review, the third one of the season. A little bit delayed with this one for a couple of reasons. Firstly, obviously, for those who are familiar, the upgrades and changes to GAMP that meant that replays weren't available for a little while. But also, I was jamming Star Wars Unlimited games, getting ready for the May the 4th tournaments that I played in that I did probably about as well as I do at Star Wars CCG at the moment. So that meant that I didn't get to the review in the timely fashion that I have the last couple of months. Also, I found that the motivation for running through 12 reviews was not really there. So I've done doing it in a slightly different format this month, which is I'm going to start by going through the goals that I had for the month. Then I'm going to go through the results for the month and pick off a couple of games that I thought were particularly interesting that either interesting matchups or good players or all those kinds of things to talk through how I went with them. So if you remember at all, I definitely sort of try to hit every month with certain goals to hit and try to not make them performance orientated as much as I possibly can for reasons that we've been through, variants and matchups and things like that. My main goals for the month, and I'm contradicting myself a little bit there, but my main objectives for the month were firstly to try to play my games earlier to see, and that was as much scientific as anything else. Was I historically, the way I play OCS games is I wait until the end of the month and then jam them in an anxiety-fueled rush to get to 12 games. And I wanted to see what would happen if I played my games early in the month and give myself the opportunity, particularly with the break in May of no OCS games, give myself as much time in May and April to change decks, get reps in, do anything else other than jamming OCS games. So my objective there was to try and get finished. I think my original objective was to try and get finished with a week to spare, at least, and see how I went with that. A common one for me, not rage quitting any games, playing games out, playing to learn, not playing necessarily to win every game. Playing things out. What happens if you lose an early battle? Can you work your way back? Can you reduce differential? This is something that I've been trying to work on this year because I do have a habit of when one thing goes wrong, just quitting, just saying, "Oh, look, this game's lost. I'm quitting. That's it." Frustrating, throwing the iPad down or whatever. Not smart language methodology here, but just generally make less mistakes. Continue to improve, continue to play better, make better decisions, all these kinds of things. And if I could get a win or three as well, that'd be a nice little tag on as well. I did some very basic arts degree level mathematics to work out that over my OCS career, my average month is 3 and 9. So if I can sort of continue to develop and sort of stay on that average amount of wins, obviously variance notwithstanding, that'd be great. So that was my objective for the month. So this was my month on the light side of things. So I dabbled a little bit with Hitco, which is an old favorite of mine. So one of my objectives for the year was and probably continues to be to try and broaden the range of decks that I can play. And that means not just playing, for example, light side mains. It means trying to get comfortable enough with a range of either control style decks or mid-range types decks to be able to pivot to if the meta shifts and all of a sudden light side mains are not popular or not very strong. And there's obviously there's match play connotations to that. There's tournament connotations to that as well of people not being able to say, oh, Sean's going to take this or so and so is going to take. I know they're going to take Hitco, so I can tech for that or whatever. There's consequences to that. So, that's for that reason I've been playing QMC in particular for the first couple of months this year. But I did want to try to remind myself of how to play Hitco, and I went 1-1 with it. The game against TTO was quite good. So it's also worth bearing in mind, I suppose, with a couple of these, looking at, if you're looking at the results, it's not simply, for better players, absolutely, it's a matter of looking at, I suppose, it's purely a results oriented thing. But for somebody developing like myself, it's worth considering these results in the isolation of are these matchups where QMC or Hiko is necessarily favored. And I would say for a couple of these, that I was definitely fighting uphill. So I'd say, for example, in the QMC versus Revenge of the Sith beta game, I was not favored, and that I needed my opponent to play suboptimally to have any chance of winning. Likewise, versus Court at the end of the month either. So they're two games that I would expect to lose. Whereas QMC versus Thrawn to a certain degree, QMC versus Shadow Collective. So a lot of people think, a lot of people will tell you that QMC is favored against Shadow Collective. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm obviously less knowledgeable on those kinds of things, and I don't think QMC is favored against anything because I lose with it against everything. But I would say that I think Shadow Collective is quite good. I like it. I know some people are down on it, but particularly when, if you get it to a 50-50 proposition, or even a 55-45, then a lot of it comes down to player skill. And if it's me versus Sam, who has been on an absolute heater for the last couple of months, then it's not really a contest. So again, that's one that I would expect to lose. Hiko versus ISB is an interesting one. I think that ISB deck that Ryan was running is quite well designed to deal with Hiko. So again, that's another one that basically this is, I'm not making excuses, but I'm saying that there's a couple of things here where I'd say there's a couple of games where looking at purely in the isolation of results is not enough, because in a couple of these matchups, at least, I probably wasn't terribly favored anyway, and I did my best against them, but it was never realistic that I was going to win those games. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at a couple of games. We'll have a look at first of all, we'll have a look at the Hitco versus ISB game, and we'll run through that at speed, and then we'll have a look at the QMC versus ROTS Vader game. So let's see how we go with these links. Okay, so once again at speed. So this is the Hitco. Gosh, that is really fast, isn't it? The Hitco versus ISB game. So this is one definitely where I open the game and I roll my eyes, and I'm a bit worried about how this is going to go. But the general game plan is going to be, this 1-2 site, this Coruscant site, 500 Republica is as close to a liability as ISB is going to have. It's because it's a Drain 3 site. Obviously, what they will probably do is play, say, a Coruscant docking bay to be able to reduce it to a drain of 1. I say a Drain 3 site, you're assuming you're going to pop loot there with a lightsaber. But what in terms of just the math of this, the great thing that Hiko can do is it can drop less characters. It doesn't put as many cards on the table to do what it needs to do as ISB. The difficulty that it has is ISB has a lot of fairly high forfeit because of arrest order, a lot of high forfeit cheap dudes that it can just drop en masse that do things. So Tarkin's cancelling battle destinies, and Callus is adding battle destinies, and all sorts of things. So not a bad opening hand here. I've got my Luke, I've got my Obi to trade with. But right now I'm probably thinking, what am I, how do I win this? What's the win condition for this? And it probably has to involve, if you talk about control versus beatdown, I'm very much in the beatdown in this game. I think that I'm not going to be able to plonk at a site, drain control. Like I'm definitely going to have to get some fights in. So Ryan playing this nice and conservatively, building up a good hand, a good amount of force to drop a bit of stuff, or looking for particular things. I'm also being quite cagey, I think. I'm not pushing the tempo. So, and then I do push the tempo, and that's one of those ones in terms of a learn. I didn't have to do anything there. There was no need for me to do anything there. So dropping these characters here is a mistake, because I know he's got 13 force, he's got 14 cards in hand. I know he's going to come down with a bunch of stuff. My hope here is a swing and 2 destinies will put him off that. Or I guess what I'm trying to do hypothetically is bait out a beat down. So get him to drop a couple of people. I knock out all of them except say 1, and then I've got the Luke and the Lando to counterbeat with, which is incredibly optimistic, but that's sort of the strategy that I'm running with here. Let's see how it goes. So the grappling hook grabs the command. Command probably not necessarily the best card to grab in this matchup. So down comes Ozzel, Partagaz, just dudes. And then Yularen, big scary Vader. Scary Vader misses. I go after the Destiny Adder and get rid of him to get him down to 15 and 1. So I'm down at 9. It's all, again, one of the downsides of ISB, if you play ISB, is so let's pause that for a second. So one of the downsides of ISB is that the average destiny sucks. And you saw that come through there. Let's just bear in mind, in terms of poor strategy, right? What I hoped to happen has happened, which is he's come down with a few people. He drew low, I drew high. So let's see. So life force totals, he's at 32, I'm at 33. Okay, so my hope here is to fight him off the side. And the problem with this, I suppose, is I'm playing right into his hands, is I'm doing what he wants to do. So so let's see how this plays out. Not well. I think he's going to be the answer. We know that it's a loss, but let's see. So down comes Luke. Luke gets a lightsaber. Luke gets a magic hand. So I go with the Obi-Wan again to get a second swing in. So the idea here will be that I'll hit both of them, hopefully draw 2 destiny. What he's probably going to do is choke. So I'm going to tempt fate again. And so Vader cops it, but he manages to choke Hera. Okay, so now I'm down to 1 destiny and 15 power. So I'm still up by 6. And what I'm hoping is that he draws relatively low, and I draw high, and he draws 4, which is not what I wanted. But I'm still up by 8. 9 for the ping. I know Obi's going to go, and he gigs out. All right. So again, so the gig, knowing my strategy, the gig would have been the better grab there. But anyway, now I've got Luke, and I've got my turn. It played out the way that I hoped. So now I go, okay, if I'm draining for 3, and there's one other battleground on the table, I have to hold this side. And instead he comes down with another bunch of cheap dudes. This time with Tarkin and a Dengar. Dengar is an interesting inclusion in the deck. I just throw down whoever I've got. He plays Dark Collaboration, so that's the one that I should have seen coming. Not sure there was much I could do about it. At this point, I'm already committed to that strategy. And I know this is going fast, but it's not really. It's undersea. And so I hit Callus. He cancels my sorry. He shoots. He misses. He shoots again. He hits. Adds 4. And he draws very nicely and clears me out, I think. And then we may see our first Rage Queen of the month. No. So yeah, so now he's got the advantage. I've got 4 Lukes in my hand. And 1 lightsaber. And he's flipped, so he's draining nicely. And he's just going to reinforce that side. And now I'm looking at it just going, well, how do I battle into that? What do I do with this? And you don't want it, you know, it's your only line, but it's not what you want to do. And now the game's over. So now we're just playing through the turns. So yeah, I'm not sure what the best line there is, whether or not it's just you're going to come across great matchups during the course of the month, people who pick good decks, and this was a good deck to pick. And obviously he played it well. So I think I scoop in a little while when I realized that, the reality is that oh, that's right. I try to do this. I try to put the maths in my favor a little bit. He's draining 3. And I'm now draining 5. That's right. He moves everybody over and then beats the snot out of my poor Luke. So yeah, I played it out for a few more turns. This is where if I had an Aberrant or something like that, again, it wouldn't matter all that much because it's move phase. But yeah, there we go. Good deck, well played. Tough spot, but you can see there, there's definitely ways I could have approached that battle that would have been better. Okay, second replay is, we'll see how quickly this goes, is a QMC game. And it should be, it's against Rots. So again, for those of you who are good players, there's probably not a lot to learn here. But this is a tough matchup because the one of the things that QMC likes to do, I suppose, is to mitigate damage as much as possible. Okay. It's a control deck, so it's going to move slowly. Rots is a beatdown deck. It's an aggro deck, so it's going to put me under a lot of pressure very, very quickly. So I feel fairly comfortable going to space early on, chancing that they will not have anything in hand. What they have is two big scale. Oh, that's one of the things that gets me about this deck is if you weren't familiar with it, I think it's Malediction. No, it's not that. It's not Malediction. It's Obsession, isn't it? Machination. Okay. At the start of opponent's control phase, Vader may relocate between the walkway and opponent's battleground side as a regular move. Was that what he did? He did something scary. It's great that he could do. Oh, that's or is it Obsession? At the start of your battle phase, move Vader to a site you don't occupy. That's the one. That's brutal. There's nowhere to hide in this deck. So luckily, I've got Path as a bit of a pseudo Hoojix. But yeah, it's a tough deck because there's nowhere to hide. When you go to the ground, you really need to be sort of quite comfortable with it. The way you win this game, and there's a reason why I get tilted in this particular game, is the way you win this game is by trying to hold, and it's a lot easier said than done, resistance, and capping and making them pay to drain for no more than 2. Now, as you can see there, I'm now shield busted because for some reason, known only to my brain when I played this game, I decided that I was worried about. So the grabber makes sense, battle plan makes sense. Do or do not. I was worried about a sense or alter, a sense, not an alter, a sense of my say a path or something like that. So I was really worried about that. Pulling simple tricks was just daft. Yeah, I know I wanted to protect against that drain of I think would have been 3. Totally get that. But it was the wrong shield to pull because it was not the way that I win this game. And this is a position I find myself in quite a lot with QMC. I know a lot of people are quite high on QMC. I think QMC is a great deck. I think I'm just terrible with it because I have a lot of trouble holding the ground, holding space, which has sort of, I suppose, traditionally been the Achilles heel a bit of QMC, which is why cards like a Hark and the Overseer were made to try and help with it and make it pullable and all these kinds of things. The biggest problem I have is negotiating my way around the ground and trying to stay alive on the ground. And as you'll see here, we can probably spin through this pretty quickly because just bad stuff happens. I just can't get a foothold on the ground. So yeah, I end up losing. But it's a tricky deck. That was a good trade for him, I suppose. But the thing to bear in mind is that he has to pay to drain the whole game. My opponent always has to pay to drain, and I needed to remember that. But I definitely realized late in the game that I'm in a tough spot because I'm not able to fulfill resistance and kept those drains even for a little bit. So that's the pathway as tough as it is. We'll just spin through this. Hey, that's right. I drew low because that again, you have to be aware of that. That there you go. I conceded there. Because I could see that I was miles behind. And again, that's another thing though, is if you are learning to play control decks, being miles behind is part of the game. So quitting because you're miles behind, obviously this is different because or it's different to me anyway, because I've got a bad matchup and all sorts of other reasons. But when you're playing these control decks, learn, and this is something that I'll continue to try to develop, potentially depending on my deck choice for next month. Learning to withstand that pressure and understand that that's what the aggro deck wants to do. But the longer the game goes on, the more likely you are going to fall into your win condition. That's the default position of the deck. So if you struggle with wanting to react to early pressure, control decks might be difficult for you to play. It's not to say you don't play them. It just means that they're a tricky move. So that was a bit rough. Probably quite indicative of where I was at with QMC and continue to be and one to work on. And on the dark side of things, I played CCT. for the whole month. I had previously been playing Agents of the Black Sun, but found with all of the hit code that was out, this again sounds a bit contradictory. With all of the hit code that was out there, I didn't want to play Agents anymore, so I decided to play CCT. I played CCT because I don't mind it against Hitco. There's things that CCT can do against Hitco. Obviously, I didn't have any luck with it 2 out of the 3 times this month. But there's some things I like against Hitco. There's cards that enable CCT to hold the audience chamber. That said, if Hitco gets the momentum and they pile in, obviously, then they win the game. But generally speaking, I like it against the field. And I did slightly better with CCT this month than I did with my light side decks. So 2 and 4. Got a win against. Actually, did I do the same? No, I didn't. Got a win against a Hitco, where again, if you have the tools at the time, you're able to pull from a reserve deck, you delay, you stack, then you win the game. And against Senate Light, which was a deck that I didn't have much experience against. But we're going to watch a couple of losses again. We're going to watch that CCT versus Hitco when Hitco gets that momentum and does what it needs to do. But also, I thought, considering the difficulties that I've had with QMC and that I've played Sam playing QMC, it's worth watching a good QMC player play it this month. So what we'll do is we'll watch the CCT versus Hitco one quickly, and then watch the CCT versus QMC game as well. Okay, CCT versus Hitco. This is a quick replay against a good friend, Gerwin from Belgium. Great player, taking a bit of a break at the moment, I think. Has done some interesting stuff in the Star Wars Unlimited world, some tech builds. So we'll see how we go with this one. I'm going to do CCT things. So off we go, activating. Down comes the dungeon. So I actually get a good jump here because I get the ship. I was trialing a bit of a different approach, which was delaying going to the audience chamber to try and build up a bigger hand to be able to drop more stuff. And it doesn't work this time. So I get Jabba across because I know that I'm going to be able to delay by 1 turn. And Jeroen says, fine, I don't care. I'm still coming with my Luke. So down comes Luke. I say no retrieval. Luke has a hand. Luke tries to fight. I say, no fighting, please. Not in here. Now, again, once again, similar to the game before, I'm now where I want to be, or where I wanted to be, where I have 12 force and a handful of characters to be able to come down and add some battle destinies and hopefully, yes, Luke is going to hit somebody. Yes, Luke is going to clear a couple, but my hope here is to build enough momentum for me to keep characters at the AC that he has to keep trading for, because I will have more characters, a wider range of characters in my deck than he will. Now, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. There's no scum, which was a problem. I needed scum to make my guys cheap. But I whiffed on my scum pool, but I'm already committed at that point. So, well, Proxima gets hit, and obviously I draw low. Actually, I was just shooting. Now I'm going to draw low and 3, and I get the 5 to crack him. So Luke's going to go, but then he's going to draw a 5, and then he's going to add another a 6 and a 5 to attrition. So, and this is obviously the downside of CCT, and I just can see it straight there. Which was a rage quit, absolutely a rage quit. So disappointing, but you can see trying to do something a little bit different there. It didn't quite work out. But that's something that can happen. Is that the great thing about Hitco is that it's going to draw high. So if you do go to the audience chamber, you can draw high. In a world where I have scum and I'm able to maybe drop a couple more characters, maybe it's a slightly different proposition, but that's just the matchup in a nutshell, really, isn't it? And finally, let's watch a good QMC player against my CCT. So I can't remember how this one goes, if I'm perfectly honest, but I'm going to do normal things. Sam's going to do normal things, and we'll see what happens. And I think Sam just does a good job of, see, if I'm CCT, I don't particularly fancy taking on QMC space, because QMC space is usually pretty good. So I've whiffed again. Had to draw into my audience chamber again. So he goes Maz to the Carbonite Chamber. So I presume that means he's got his evasion. He also knows, I'm probably not going to attack into his Maz because I need to keep doing my CCT setup stuff. So that tempo miss really sucked for this particular matchup. So I'm drawing up because, again, I know he's probably not going to come after me at the audience chamber, but he's able to get in some early damage. And he's going to go wide to these places. He feels comfortable with the Lando and the Lobot, which I'm not sure I would, but clearly he's. There we go. There's Scum. Going to block the drain of 2. I'm trying to buy some time here. I'm playing, funnily enough, I'm playing control when I should be playing beatdown, realistically. I really should be going after him. Then goes the Yox Git and the solo. He goes out. So he's just gone wide, quick, doing lots of quick damage. I don't know why going to space is a good idea there. And I think that means that it's not a good idea. He's got the double barrier, which is always handy. So I suppose that probably means he's quite happy. He's done well to get his evading battles package in place. But now he beats up on my poor Probot. I've got the geek in hand anyway. He's celebrating. And this is what QMC looks like. It gets rolling characters-wise, doesn't it? But against, say, when you look at the game that I was playing against Rods, I wasn't able to get those characters rolling. And it makes sense because I was getting smacked in the face every time I tried to do it. Because I wasn't trying to go wide, but he grabs the geek to stop me from being able to do silly stuff, cancels my drain evasion, my blocking the spies, and this game isn't long for us anymore. Because what I like that he does as well is that he's got battle destinies at every site. He's not worried about fighting. Whereas I worry a lot about fighting. So he paths in and I concede. Right. Because again, probably I'd say it's a rage quit, that one. And that's where you will give up games to better players because you will assume that you're way behind when you could probably play it out. But yeah, that's what good QMC looks like against a bad CCT player. So, lesson to be learned there is stop making dumb mistakes and stop whiffing on the AC and scum and villainy when you are trying to pull them from your reserve deck. 1 month, I went 3-9, which, one win against Hitco, one win against Senate Light, and the one win against TTO with Hitco. Lots to learn. Did I play my games there in a month? Yeah, just. I finished with a few days to go, which gave me some space to practice some Star Wars Unlimited. And I've been tinkering a little bit with a couple of decks for next month's OCS, but not nearly enough. I absolutely rage quit games, and that's something that I'll continue to try and work on. Not playing quite so tired and enjoying the game, playing decks that I enjoy and having fun, which means that QMC might get shelved for a little while. Not really. I mean, in terms of the games that I played, mistakes that I made, they're probably not the best indicators of replays because a couple of them, quite high variance. It's more about not rage quitting, but just thinking more about strategic board state and things like that is something that I'll continue to work on. I need to get my win of 3, which was great. So that's the wrap for the April OCS. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching it. I will hopefully come back with some extra replays in the next few weeks just to keep that content churning. So make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, those things that people say. And if you've got any questions about the video or anything like that, don't hesitate at all if you're on the Star Wars CCG Slack to hit me up or drop a comment in here and I'll get back to you. Thanks very much for watching.